Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Brian Lawfer and I am the Vice President here at QuoteWerks. Today we are going to be talking about the new features added in QuoteWerks version 23. If you are an older build or version, you can easily update to the latest just by installing version 23 build 1. You do not need to install incremental updates. When you install an update, you receive all of the features and fixes available up to and including the build or version you just installed. If you have any questions while we go along here, please feel free to ask them in the GoToWebinar toolbar questions box as we go along. If there are any questions that I do not answer throughout the demo, I will do my best to answer them towards the end. They can be about this release or QuoteWerks in general. If you think of a question after the webinar or I do not fully answer your question, make sure to email or give us a call. As you can see, we will have a short PowerPoint presentation first to discuss some of the new features. Then we will actually be demonstrating the key features for you, followed by the opportunity to ask more questions. Version 23, as it's been released, has 37 new features, 4 miscellaneous features, and of course fixes. And we'll be releasing builds just like we normally do, and incremental builds as well. So you may have noticed the big jump in versions here. Every year we have been releasing either just builds or point releases like version 4.7, version 5.2, or version 5.7 that we just released last year. Each of these were significant updates, however, but people thought they were just small incremental updates. These point releases typically included over 100 new features each year. We finally corrected this branding oversight with the release of version 23. Of course, it does line up with the year 2023, but that was just a coincidence and just solidified this decision. We have a blog topic on our website that goes into more detail if you're interested in learning more. So let's go into what's actually in this release. Just like any other new update, we have some CRM and accounting updates. For Sugar CRM 12.2, we added support for that. Goldmine users 2022.4. We added some recurring product enhancements if you're using Autotask for your products, and then more as well. And we'll talk about that more a little bit later on in the presentation here. So at the beginning of the year, we actually sent out a survey out to all of our customers that were using QuoteWerks Web as far as what they wanted for multi-factor authentication. And the one that everybody wanted, surprisingly, was no multi-factor authentication. So that's why that is still an option. I don't recommend that, but we do offer that in QuoteWerks Web. But what we did in this release is we added the 2 most requested, which were authenticator apps like from Google and Microsoft. And then we also added Duo for multi-factor as well. And you can take advantage of all the Duo options in there. Of course, we still have the ability to do text message via 2-factor as well. A big one that I was really happy that we were able to add in this release was the ability to have a custom QuoteValet URL. This is something that people have been asking for as well. And mostly it's for branding and also to help customers not familiar with QuoteValet know that it's actually coming from you. So instead of that www.quotevalet.com, it can be yourcompany.quotevalet.com. So for us, it might be like aspire.quotevalet.com. And you have the ability to customize that. It doesn't have to be something that's approved by us, although we are looking for bad words. So anyways, moving on. We have our text library here. So we've always had the F2 lookup, and that was in the Zoom description. That was in almost every field in QuoteWerks, and we've really made that a lot. We've made that a lot better. And listen to your feedback. And actually, we're adding more functionality to that as we speak. The developers are working on it. But what we've done for like the normal F2 lookup, now we have 2 columns, so you can see the actual value and then the description as well as to what that actually means. And then also for the Zoom description or for memo fields, so like your description fields or custom memo fields, we've made it so you can very easily add and string together more text together. So it's going to be easier for you to create those statements of work or terms or just common text that would normally be built for the customer to see. And you'll see how that's used and how you can customize that as we get along here in the demo. And then we have find and replace. So QuoteWerks has always had the find feature, but now we added the ability to do replace as well. And this is in the document items grid. And you can look for specific values in a specific field or column, I should say, or across the entire grid. And one of the cool features here, it doesn't have to be a complete, find and replace. It could be like maybe you just made a change and any quote that goes out, the minimum price can be like $10, for instance. So you could look for any line item on the document that is less than $10 and you can set it to $10. And that's probably something very close to what I'll use in my example. And you can go up to edit and find, or you can do Control F, just like you would normally expect to be able to do. And then we have a totally new feature. It's called the Data Manager, and we spent some time internally trying to figure out what we were going to call this, and we kept coming back to it, so that's why it's called the Data Manager. And what it allows you to do is really take control of the data within QuoteWerks, and that's going to allow you to import and export more information. It also has a new mass update functionality that was previously in the Medic utility, but we've moved it into the main application itself. So what do I mean by import export? Well, this is going to give you the ability to export all of your bundle information, configurations, required items, optional items, substitute items, and more as well. And why is that important? Well, if you have other remote users and they're not able to sync up normally, you can export them all out and they can import them in their own installations. Also, we're working with a very large franchise company, and they want to be able to send out bundles to their franchisees. And so what we've done here is made it so they can, at the main franchise organization, they can create a bundle, and then they can export that out, and then they can import it in on each of the franchise locations because all their products are are controlled and set up the same way. So it makes it very easy in that. And then the other thing that's really awesome here is the fact that your bundles that you have in your own install, well, your parts, they probably change pretty often, right? Well, this will allow you to export everything out, do a find and replace on certain part numbers. That way you can replace them with the new updated items, and then import that back in. It's not going to create a duplicate bundle. It's just going to replace what was currently there, and there you go. You've got your new bundle. It's pretty cool. All right, so we got a couple of things going on here. Finally, we have some questions here. So Alec has a question. Will the text library be available in the web version? Yes, I believe it currently is. If it isn't, it will be very shortly. I know in our morning Scrum meeting, we did discuss that. So I know that they're adding more functionality because right now we are working very hard on implementing some new updates that people are asking for already in that new feature, and so they'll have to merge that in. Let's see. Yes. So a question here from Gretchen. I'm going to get to that in just a minute, and I'll talk to you about that. But the question was about the QuoteValet custom URL, about whether or not the limitation on the first 30 characters. All you have to do is put in that CNAME, and I'll show you what that is when we get to the demo. All right, and then ADI. So this is something that people have asked for probably for the last decade, and I've been working on this off and on for the last year, trying to get this up and running. So now, if you have our real-time module with our product content subscription, you will now be able to search for ADI parts within QuoteWerks, and that'll search Edelweiss as well as through our part locator, because every night we're doing an import of all the ADI parts, and this is going to bring in your pricing as well. So pretty awesome. Looking forward to showing you guys that. I know time isn't new, but with us, we've made some big changes in version 23 in regards to time. The biggest one is we've converted all of the database times to UTC time. So why is that important? Well, as we do more and more stuff with QuoteWerks Web, we're in so many more time zones, even in your own organization. So we need to be able to handle that a lot better, especially when it comes to synchronization and people modifying different things. And then the big one for what we just added, quote expirations with time. Now, why is that important? Well, right now, when you set it in previous versions, or even right now, if you don't specify a time, it's going to be 11:59 of whatever day you just specified. But what if you've got a special, or your sales rep wants to make sure that you get that sale by Friday at 4 p.m. Well, you can set that that quote to expire at Friday at 4 p.m. so that your customer cannot accept the quote after that date. So you have that capability now, and so that way you can create that extra sense of urgency. This is something we'll be using ourselves internally. So sorry about that. All right. And then Sammy had a question about ADI Canada because we just added ADI. I don't have an answer as far as when we will add that. If you haven't done so already, definitely add that to our feature request on our forum, and we can definitely talk to ADI and see if it's possible to add ADI Canada to that mix. All right. And then, especially in the day of back orders and everything else, as far as what we have to do with shipping and ordering different things, customers want to know when they're receiving items. So now, if you have an ETA date on an order that you've put in through QuoteWerks, or a purchase order you put in through QuoteWerks, either electronically or manually, now you can automatically send out an ETA date to your customer to help manage those expectations. This is really going to help you when it comes to organizing your data and keeping your customers in line as far as what's going on. So those were a lot of the key features. Like I said, we've got like 37. It'll be probably closer to 40 or more when we're all done with build 1 here. It is available now. So I thought this would be a good time for us to mention, we just announced our top 10 partners for 2022. And a lot of these are familiar names. They're usually in the top 10. Sometimes they change orders and whatnot, but if you're ever looking for an implementation partner, or someone to work with that is more of a consultant versus somebody that you can just for technical support, these are some great partners to work with. I did also want to recognize Matt Rose here. He's been our MVP probably a decade now, but we did have a close second from Justin from Great America, and we sent out a survey out to the community. We had almost 700 responses, which I thought was an awful lot for the MVP. And Matt Rose came in first place, with Justin being very close in second. Also wanted to mention our winter special. It is back for a limited time. It ends a week from tomorrow. And this is a great time if you're looking at adding more licenses or renewing your UMP. You can save 10% off of that. So I just wanted to make sure I did mention that as well. Before we get into the demo, I wanted to make sure that I also mentioned the fact that we do offer free trials on things. So if you're looking for adding vendor RFQ, QuoteValet, QuoteWerks Web, any of those things, we do have a free trial that's available. We have videos, we have help documentation, live and recorded webinars, as you guys all know now. We also offer professional services, as well as training. And like I mentioned before, we do have partners that can assist with all of this as well. And then obviously for technical support, we do offer both phone and email support as well. So just wanted to mention that. And lastly, like a lot of you guys have already started seeing, because I'm seeing more questions pop up, please feel free to ask questions in the GoToWebinar box. And this webinar will be recorded. So if you miss something, you can go to our YouTube channel or our website, and you can go back and listen to something, or maybe replay a new feature or whatnot. Also, I welcome you to follow us on social media. It's not just a lot of fluff. Basically, when we come out with new features, new blog topics, we will post them there. Of course, we do have some fluff. I think we're going to be putting up pictures from our Christmas party tomorrow, but that is a good way to keep in touch with us as well. All right, so that's that. All right, so let's go ahead and launch version 23 here. You'll notice that we have our new image. That'll give you an idea. If your image hasn't been updated to this, you're not on 23. All right, So the first thing we're going to talk about is the QuoteValet custom URL. It's a very easy feature to implement if you've already got QuoteValet. I'm going to start off with a new template. And what I'm going to do is go up to Tools, Options. And your QuoteWerks administrator will only have to do this once. And we're going to go to QuoteValet here and QuoteValet Setup. And then once everything gets loaded here, what we're going to do is you'll notice the screen got redesigned just a little bit. And right here, we've got the custom QuoteValet URL. So all you're going to do here is put in the custom CNAME. So that's in replace of the www. So you have 30 characters to put in whatever you want. Can't have any spaces or special characters. So in this case, I'm going to have QuoteWerks webinar. So what's going to happen when I send the link to the customer, it's going to be quoteworkswebinar.quotevalet.com. And you just want to make sure you save that CNAME. And we'll go ahead and close out of this. Let's go ahead and create this quote here. I just need to go ahead and search for a contact. And we'll just bring this in here. There we go. Go ahead and quote it to myself. And let's go ahead then and save this. We'll just call this webinar. I'm not going to do the integration points. A lot of the integration points are very similar, no matter which CRM or PSA you're using. You've got your opportunities, your link documents, and whatnot. We'll go ahead and click on OK. And then, so now let's go ahead and deliver the document. Go ahead and select whatever layout you want to use, just like you're already used to doing. And we'll go ahead and upload this to QuoteValet. And we're going to go ahead and click on Upload. All right. So now you'll notice at the top here, instead of www, we've got quoteworkswebinar.quotevalet.com. And then if I was to send this email to my customer, click there and then click on the link, you'll notice that also there it's showing the QuoteWerks webinar as well. So just letting you guys know, it's a new feature that's available to you. And it is available in version 23. If you don't have a custom CNAME set, it's just going to be defaulting to www. All right, so that's that feature. Let's go ahead and close this and close this. All right, so the new text library and F2 lookup feature. Let's talk about the F2 lookup first because it's the easiest one to kind of explain. If we go to our sale info tab here, you can see I have priority. Now, if I were to hit F2 or double click in the field, we've got our F2 lookup. Again, it's pretty similar to what we used to have, but now we have columns. And by default, the value will be on your left, the description will be on your right. The value is what's going to actually be set in the field. So if I were to say that this is a high priority, so in this case, the value is going to be red, I just double click on it and now it's set. You'll notice that high priority isn't there. That's just a description or a hint text or something to help somebody along to know what to use there. And each one of these fields are going to be different. So like if I were to go into like the manufacturer field, I could have my own F2 lookup there to create different values. So manufacturer HP could be for printers. And I could have another one in here, Microsoft, can't type. Let's try that one more time. And we could say for Office 365. So if I were to change this now, change this one to Microsoft, and it's just got Microsoft in there. It's not taking in the Office 365. Okay. Pretty straightforward, right? So if you've used the F2 lookup before, it's going to be very similar to that. Now, where things deviate, if I were to like add a comment line here and double click here, we're in the Zoom description. So now what I can do is click on the show text library. So we always had the F2 lookup before, but now we have what's called the text library. And what is that for? Well, you can see we've got some text here, right? So this, what this is going to do is, if I were to click on append, now it's appending our mission. Let's go ahead and append some information about our support, maybe some information about support and training. And now we have a whole lot of text going in here, and I can build this out. If I wanted to, if you're like copying and pasting into emails and whatnot, we can copy this value. I can bring up like Notepad, and there's our training and testing. If I wanted to do that, like if you're trying to help yourself when sending an email to a customer and just needed some text, you've got that. And if I click on OK, here's our mission here. And if I zoom again, you'll see all of that text. Let's see, question here from Chris. Is the F2 description able to show up on reports or ODBC? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that one, Chris. If you send an email to support@QuoteWerks.com, they'll be able to answer that for you. I don't think I've ever been asked that question, so definitely send an email there. Quick question here that came in from Matthew. Does QuoteWerks manage physical inventory? I would say sort of. I would definitely recommend using a different application to truly manage physical inventory. We have the ability, if you're bringing in, if you're like converting a quote to an order, we can decrement the inventory, but we don't have a good like inventory replacement. So we do, but it's not a great solution when it comes to that, Matthew. All right, so that's that on the description field, but that's not the only place we have memo fields. We have custom memo fields right here. Let's go ahead, I went too far. So I have a custom memo field here. You notice that I don't have anything in my text library because these text libraries and F2 lookups are field specific. So that's why it's not in there. But if I go to my custom tab here, I've got my statement of work. If I double click on this or click on that button right there, I can go to my Zoom and here's my text library. It's very similar text to what I had on my description, but they are separate. So if I wanted to, I could go ahead and insert that and then go ahead and append that one. And now I've got my statement of work. Of course, you can go in and make some modifications if you wanted to as well. Really happy with this feature here. All right. Let's see. I think that's it for the text library. So find and replace. So let's go ahead and see what we've got on this document here. So what we can do first is go to edit here and then find replace. I usually just do Control F. And so we've got our find and then we've got our replace here. So now you can specify which column you want to look in. I'm probably going to look in very specific columns, like say the manufacturer field. So maybe in the manufacturer field, I'm going to look for anything that contains Microsoft and replace that with HPE Inc. because I didn't mean to actually make that change that I did before. We can go ahead and click on replace. You'll notice that that got replaced. HP Inc. is not correct anymore, so let's go ahead and look for that and replace that with HPE, replace, and now that one's been replaced as well. So that way you can very easily do a search and replace throughout your entire document. You could do it on the vendor if you wanted to as well. But the other place that's really helpful is like looking on the unit price. So maybe we now have a new policy that we don't sell anything for less than $250. I know it's kind of crazy, but we'll just say that that's the case. So what we can do here is I could look for unit price, and I could look for anything less than $250 and set it to $250. So you'll notice that the first two should stay the same. Our system though, or our system monitoring is going to change from 20 to 250. This labor is going to change from 200 to 250, and this 130 should change to 250 as well. And there you go. Now we've replaced all of those values. So you could be looking for different things. So maybe if your unit list isn't set or your cost is below a certain value, you could upcharge that as well. All right. So that is the find and replace, and the find and replace is going to be on the document items tab there. Let's go ahead and move on to the data manager. And the data manager is available under the utilities menu and data manager. And really, you're only going to want your QuoteWerks admin to be the one going in here. So let's talk about the mass update first. This is the easiest one to understand. We'll be adding more functionality to this probably in the future, but the one that people have been wanting, especially in the days of inflation that we're in, was the ability to update their fixed price by a certain percentage. So what you can do is for your native product databases, in this case, I have two native product databases. I have our products and primary vendor. I could increase our products by a percentage of like 5%. So I'm going to have a across the board increase of 5%. Now this is only going to work for any of the fixed price items. So just make sure that you know that. And then by default, we are going to create a backup before we do that update. And I recommend doing that. All right, so that's easiest one to understand, the data manager mass update functionality. But then we have our import and export. So the easiest one on the export side is understanding how to export all of your data. So we have the ability to export out all of our bundles, configurations, required items, optional items, substitute items, reports, contacts, and vendors. So if I wanted to export out all of my bundles, all I have to do is click on this button here, click on export. We'll go ahead and save it to my desktop. It's going to export it out as a CSV. I'm going to go ahead and click on save, and you'll notice that it's right here now. Let's go ahead and open that file. So view file here. And now we have all of the fields that were exported. So that's a lot of fields, right? Well, the benefit of doing this is that you can kind of see, what kind of data is stored in each thing. So let's go ahead and make sure that we've got that. And what's going to be key here is going to be that bundle headers requid, because that's going to tell us what needs to be with each bundle there. So if we're going to be updating something, we could do that. So what we can do is if we wanted to replace a part number, we could just by going over here. You'll see that we have our bundle items part number. And we could replace, say, service 1 with service B, and then go ahead and re-import that. And basically, after you make that change, you go ahead and save it. Go over to import, click on bundles, go to import, and then go ahead and click on continue, obviously. And then you'd select that file that you went ahead and changed. And just like before, we're going to create a backup before we do that import as well. The other thing that's really cool too is you can actually create new bundles from scratch, and you can do that by doing the empty templates here. Most of the time, you're just going to need the basic columns. So I'll show you what that looks like here real quick. I'm going through this kind of quickly. This is not for advanced. This webinar is not for advanced users. But we will definitely be doing a video on how to do this later on. But as you can see, we have the minimum fields required to import in a new bundle with what product database it is, what items are going to be in there, what the name is going to be, that sort of thing. All right, so I'm not going to save that, and I'm not going to save that either. But it's that simple to go ahead and import and export data from QuoteWerks with the data manager. Next thing we're going to go over here is the ADI integration. And so like I said before, you do need to have the real-time module, and you do need to have the product content subscription. And right now, I believe this is just for the US, but it might also be for Canada. I'll have to contact my people over at ADI to find out. So what we're going to do is go to the tools menu and then options. If you have integrations with ADI with any other vendor, you can use those same API credentials. You don't have to have different ones just for us. So what we're going to do now is go to real-time and real-time setup. And then we're going to go over to other real-time. A quick, simple little feature that we just added was the collapse list. So this way you can easily see all of the other real-time vendors and get access to it easily. So we've got our ADI, and as you can see, you just put in your ADI credentials right there. And then if we go up to products, we're going to go to utilize in this case. Now we can search for something. I know for me, the easiest thing to find ADI parts for is like Honeywell Fire. So I can go ahead and click on find. And you'll notice that I have different list prices and whatnot over here. So let's go ahead and select this product. Let's go ahead and get our real time. And there is our price from ADI. Let's do that one more time. And there we go. All right. So now let's go ahead and do another search. In this case, I'm going to use our search for field here and double click. So this is another way to use that F2 lookup field. And this is how I've used it a lot because part numbers, you may not know what that part number is. So on the right-hand side here, I've got my descriptions. So you can specify what the value is, and this is going to be like your part number. And then on the right-hand side, you'll have your descriptions. So in this case, I've got ADI part, click on find. And this is going to be held by a couple of different vendors. So we've got Synex, ScanSource, and ADI. We just updated our ScanSource integration in a recent build. We've got ScanSource ADI. Let's go ahead and see if Amazon has pricing. And it's going out, and we do have Amazon pricing as well. If you have Amazon Business set up in QuoteWerks, it would bring in the Amazon Business pricing as well, which is usually going to be better than the straight up Amazon price that you would have. All right, so that's the ADI integration. Right now, we just have the product integration with ADI. If we get enough requests, we can add additional functionality as well. This is the big one that everybody has been asking for. Because this is what you're going to be using on a daily basis when you're creating your quotes. All right, let's go ahead and click on close here. So something that's been up this entire time is our active quotes for contact. All right, so we've made a change in this last build, or last version, I should say, where now we've got some colors that'll be helpful for you. So this cyan color here, that's the document that's currently open, okay? And then you'll notice that we have this red one here. This is showing you all the documents that are going to be expired, okay? So before, it wasn't clear as to, like for us, for instance, we put out, lots of different quotes, especially for our partners where, they may have 20 customers on their own. So we're sending out, lots of quotes to them on a regular basis. So what we can do is we can see all of the expired quotes very easily. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to this expired quote, and we're going to kill two birds with one stone, and we're going to talk about the expires. So you'll notice that if I go to sale info, we've got expires. Yours probably has something that does not have, actually this one had a date on it, or a time on it. Let me see if I had one that didn't have a time. Of course that does. I think all of mine now might have a time on them. Yeah, they do. All right, just kidding on that. Let's go back then to this one. So you can, if you want to, get rid of the time. But if you get rid of the time, it's going to go to 11:59. So you may have noticed something that happened real quick there. The quote up at the top is no longer red. Why is it no longer red? Well, now, because it's 11:59 tonight, it's no longer expired. If I were to change this to 11:59 a.m., you'll notice that the quote is now expired. Of course, this over here hasn't changed to red, from red to the other color because I haven't saved the document yet. It hasn't been updated in the database. So let's go ahead and change this, change it to PM, and let's go ahead and save it. And now that is no longer red, and I'm still in the cyan there. All right. I'm not done yet, don't worry. So that was the quote expirations with time. And so this is going to be, QuoteValet will observe this. So when you send that quote out to the customer, they're going to use that, that time that you have for the expires. Again, anything that doesn't already have a time with it will be defaulted to 11:59. All right. Next feature, it's a really small feature, but a lot of you have been asking for it, that use Eatalize. If you do not use pictures on your quotes, you know, we were downloading pictures of your items, whether or not you're using pictures or not. So we did have a request for people to, for an option to disable that. So if we go to Tools, Options, and we go to real-time setup, and then product content subscription, we've now have another checkbox here below the remove manufacturer part number from Eatalize description. If this first checkbox isn't checked, you should check it, because basically otherwise your part numbers are going to be your customer. But the main reason that I'm here is for that do not download product images from Eatalize. So if you do not use pictures on your quotes, check that checkbox. The integration with Eatalize is going to be so much faster for you. Now in the product lookup, we're still going to show you the picture because that's not actually downloading it at that point. It's just loading it off the web. But if you don't have that checkbox checked, then we're going to be downloading the image every single time. And if you're not using it, this is going to save you space on your network as well. All right. So the next thing here is, let's talk about the file open. So for QuoteWerks, we have reporting, right? Well, we also have this file open, and we wanted to make it easier for people to use the file open to find information and get that information out of QuoteWerks as well. And what you can see here is now, what I have right now is all my documents, okay? If I scroll over to the right, we now have some additional fields in QuoteWerks. We have sold to email, ship to email, and bill to email now available on the file open. We've always had that, but now we're actually displaying it. And the reason this is so important is if I click now on my export to clipboard, that just copied it to my Windows clipboard. So if I bring up Excel, and I paste, now I have all of those fields, including that ship to email, sold to email, bill to email. Why is that important? Well, maybe you want to contact all of those relevant customers via like Constant Contact or like a survey, like a SurveyMonkey or something like that. So now you have the ability to get those email addresses out, import this into those other services, and you can send out those broadcasts. Where that gets really cool is maybe you want to look for anybody that you've ever quoted a certain product to. So in this case, we'll say a router. So I'm going from 1,500 documents now down to 23, click on copy, go over to Excel here, do a new document, paste, and now I have those documents there and I can export those out and send out an email broadcast out to all those customers and have some marketing information going out. All right. And that's something that people have been asking for. And the other thing too, since if you are using this as more of a reporting tool, you might notice, well, this screen is kind of, once you've already done your search, it's kind of limited. Well, you can click on that button there. It's going to make it a little bit more full screen so you have access to more things. You can also make it wider as well, and you can collapse it back down as well. Just a cool feature when it comes to the file open. For those that do not want to go into the actual reporting in QuoteWerks, you can do that right here. Obviously in reporting, you're going to have more capabilities, but you can narrow down by like header fields and item fields as well. All right. Just going through a couple of comments here. I'm glad you like this feature, Chris. Yeah, I mean, it was a problem having to do the exports out. Some people were doing reporting. Other people were connecting via ODBC or SQL like you were doing as well. Okay. Couple of other questions. Okay, and we'll go ahead and save those for offline questions. So we're talking about reporting, right? Well, let's go ahead and close this. Oops, helps if I click on close. Let's go to reports now. So you're going to notice some things that have changed here, right? So we now have a category column. We also now have, we're also showing the last modified and created on dates, but we also now have who was the last one to modify the document or the report and who was the one to create it. Now in the beginning, it's going to be completely blank, as you can see with most of these, but now you do have the ability to see that. So as you're using it more, you can find out, okay, well, who was the one that went in and made those changes? You can also now sort based on category. So by default, it's all going to be general, but you can create new ones. So like here, we've got purchasing. So let's go ahead and edit that. And if I go to general, I've got my categories here. Now I don't have purchasing here. So let's go ahead and click on purchasing, click on save. Don't know what happened there. Okay, oh, I didn't do save and close, my bad. So now I've got purchasing there. So let's go ahead and edit this one. And now I should have purchasing in this list. We'll do save and close. And now I have my two purchasing ones, and now they'll be clumped together. And if I go over here, you'll notice that I was the last one to modify them. And now we have the last modified dates there as well. All right. And we'll go ahead and click on close. So that's the new functionality there for reporting. Let's see. So those are kind of the highlights of some of those new features. If you go to our website, we'll go ahead and do that real quickly. So, you know, if you're using QuoteWerks Web, you can click on login there now. It's just an easier way to get there. But if I go to support and updates, you'll see this is our current release. And if I go to view feature list, here are all of the new features available in that version. So as you can see, we've got 37 new features there, our miscellaneous features and our fixes there. Also, if you go to our customer area, you can see the highlights of those new features. And it's also a very easy way to see the complete list of features in a specific version. So in this case, here are all the new features in version 23. As we add new functionality, that'll be there. So it shows you each of the interim or the small builds as well. So we're at 1.06 right now. I think we're going to be at 1.07 or 1.08 by tomorrow for that feature. All right, so that's how you can check on that. Just so you guys know some things that are coming. We're gonna now have, very soon, we're gonna have a logo or that you can have at the header level that you can include on your layouts. So that way you can very easily change your logo across the board. That's helpful. Also company picture 1 and 2, so you can have additional pictures that can go on your different layouts as well. For the F2 lookup and text library, we're going to be able to remember those columns as well as remember the checkbox to show the text library as well. So that's just some of the highlights that will be coming. All right. So definitely, those are some of the highlights I wanted to make sure that we went over here. If you have any other questions, make sure to ask. I'm happy to answer any of those questions that you might have. Miguel had a question here. When will QuoteWerks be available as a SaaS cloud app? We're getting very close. It's been a very slow road, but we've made it so it's been very seamless for our users as far as going from the desktop app to the web application. Even as it is, the web application will allow you to do basically everything you need in the web app to be able to create quotes, modify quotes, basically just some of the setup, layout design, and then like purchasing will not be there. So like if I were to click on this button here, it's going to go ahead and launch QuoteWerks Web. Go ahead and log in here. It's just going to take a second because I haven't logged into QuoteWerks Web in a little while. you'll notice that this screen here matches what I have in QuoteWerks Desktop. That way you'll always make sure that you know what version you're on. Okay, just getting started up here. And I am on our MySQL database is local to me. It's not in our hosting. If you're in our hosting, that would be much faster. So this is QuoteWerks Web. I did want to show a couple of things while you guys are thinking about some questions. If we go to Setup and we go to Users, I'll go to David real quick, click on Edit. This is where you're going to set up what you're going to do for multi-factor. So if you have the mobile number for David set up, he'd be able to select that. We can also select the Authenticator app or Duo as well, and that's where you set that up. All right, we have a couple of questions that have come through. Let's see, question from Sammy. We need to be able to download pictures from Autotask parts. That's a good feature request. Sammy, if you haven't done so already, make sure to add that as a feature request on our forum. That is something that we could possibly add. Will you open up the QuoteWerks Web API to allow linking? Okay, good question there from Roth. So right now, QuoteWerks Web does not have an API. That is something that we will be working on. But before we do that, we want to make sure that QuoteWerks Web has all of the core functionality that everybody needs. So you'll notice that we've started adding a lot more functionality, even to the point where you now have the ability to set up different integrations. We started off with ConnectWise. We'll be adding in some of the other web-based CRMs to have that in there. We now have the tools options available to set up in here. We have the My Preferences. Like I said, I'm using my local SQL as opposed to the SQL that is out on our database hosting. So it's a little bit slower when it comes to some of the very SQL intense things, but on our DB hosting, it's on our cloud, so it's super fast there. Let's see, some other things that are helpful, advanced. So question about the SaaS side. So if you have users that are only using QuoteWerks Web and they need to be able to access QuoteWerks Desktop for some reason, we make it very easy for them just to click on this button and it will go ahead and install a very quick installation of QuoteWerks Desktop, and they'll be able to, and it'll automatically sync the layouts. They can make a layout change and it'll sync back up. So we make it very easy on that. All right. Some more questions have come in. Let's see, every time it logs out, I'll ask you to open documents. Can we open recent? Oh, that's a good question, Sammy. That's another one that would be great for suggestions. So what Sammy was asking about there is basically whenever you go to QuoteWerks Web for the first time, it's basically right here. It doesn't show you those recent documents, but if you click on this drop down, it will show you those recent documents that you were with recently. So that kind of gets what you're looking for, Sammy. If that doesn't, definitely send an email to support or add as a feature request on our forum. Our forum is what we go to when it comes to adding feature requests, and then also from support. A lot of times support will change those tickets over to being a feature request. But definitely having it as a feature request on our forum is the best way to get a new feature in QuoteWerks. All right. Just gonna give it a couple more seconds here, a couple more minutes if anybody has any other questions. Had some good questions here, thank you. Question from Sammy, can we have multiple QuoteWerks desktops without paying for it? I don't know exactly what you're talking about there, but if it's all the same installation, same backend, you can have as many QuoteWerks desktops as you want, but it's going to be based on concurrent users, not named users. So you can have 50 people having access to QuoteWerks, but only 5 at a time, if that answers your question there. Okay. All right. Give it a couple more minutes here. Just want a quick reminder, our winter special is going on. It will end in a week from tomorrow. So make sure if you do want to get an update, do it before then. We will be adding additional updates here shortly. Thank you, Steve. I love doing these webinars. All right, so it looks like we're kind of running down as far as the end here. I think about 50 minutes is about right for this version 23. So be on the lookout for new features. If you have any other questions, feel free to send us an email, support@QuoteWerks.com. And if you missed something in this webinar, it will be on our website probably in the next 24 to 48 hours, and it'll also be available on our YouTube channel as well. So with that, thank you guys and have a great day.